Tomorrow morning you will drive a road you have driven 1,000 times. You will arrive safely at your destination, but you will remember none of it. Researchers examined 16 published autobiographies. The years from 18 to 32 were 23% of those lives, and 43% of the pages. By the end of this, you'll know why your childhood summers felt endless, why the last decade has disappeared in a blink, and why the thing that's accelerating is not the thing you think it is. In 1877, a French philosopher named Paul Janet published 6 pages in a Paris journal. He called it an internal optical illusion. His idea was arithmetic. Compare each year to the life you have already lived. For a 10-year-old, a year is 1/10 of everything that has ever happened to them. For a 50-year-old, the same year is 1/50th. The year hasn't changed, the denominator has. William James repeated the idea in 1890. Everyone has repeated it since because it feels correct the moment you hear it. But Janet never tested it. Nobody did, for over a century. And when someone finally did, the number that came back was much smaller than anyone expected. In 2005, Mark Wittmann and Sandra Leenhoff at Ludwig Maximilian University in Munich ran the first real test of this across a whole lifespan. 499 people, ages 14 to 94, Germany and Austria. They asked a plain question. How fast did the past 10 years pass for you? Older people answered, faster. The pattern was real. It has since been found again in the Netherlands, in New Zealand, in Japan, in Canada. It is one of the most reliably replicated feelings in psychology. But look at the size of it. Age accounted for, at most, 10% of the differences between people. 10%, which means Janet was not wrong. He was just not the story. 90% of why your decade vanished is something else entirely. So what is it? In 1986, 3 researchers, David Rubin, Scott Wetzler, and Robert Nebus, asked adults over 40 to recall events from their own lives. Then they plotted where those memories landed. They were not spread evenly. They clustered, hard, between roughly age 10 and age 30. Psychologists call it the reminiscence bump, and 40 years later it is still one of the most stubborn findings in memory research. Now think about what that does to a life story. Those 16 autobiographies. Average author, age, 66. Whole lives to choose from. 15 years took nearly 43% of the pages. Not because those years were more important, because those years were full of first times. First job, first city. First apartment with your name on the lease. First person who left. Every one of those is a landmark. And here is the mechanism plainly. Your memory does not measure time. Your memory counts landmarks. A stretch of life with many landmarks reads as long. A stretch with few reads as short, which raises an uncomfortable question about the years you're in right now. 2003. Dina Avni-Babad and Ilana Raitov at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. They ran 4 experiments and 2 field studies, including one with people on holiday and one on a kibbutz. The finding was consistent. When a stretch of time is routine, people remember it as shorter than an identical stretch that was not. Not experienced as shorter, remembered as shorter, because routine produces nothing to encode. Every commute you took this year does not sit in your memory as 200 separate mornings. It collapses into one generic morning, filed once. The days were still lived. Your body was there for all of them. They just left almost nothing behind. William James saw this in 1890. He wrote that the years grow hollow and collapse. Which brings us to the thing almost nobody says out loud. Go back through those studies and look at what they measured. The age effect shows up for long stretches. 3 years, 5 years, 10. Now ask people how fast the last week went, the last month, the last year. No age effect. None. Confirmed again this year in 2026. So read that carefully. Time is not speeding up. Right now, in this minute, time is passing for you at exactly the rate it passed when you were 9 years old. A boring afternoon still crawls. A red light still takes forever. The acceleration is not in your present. It only exists in the rearview mirror. You are not losing time. You are losing the record of it. In April of 2026, Alice Tegiel, Mark Whitman, and their colleagues published the study that pins this down in the journal Memory and Cognition. 120 people, ages 20 to 91, across Italy, Germany, and Switzerland. They expected the obvious answer: fewer memories, faster time. That is not what they found. The number of memories people could recall had no link to how fast their decade felt, and older participants actually rated their memories as more vivid and more meaningful than younger ones did. The thing that predicted a fast decade was one narrow test: delayed recall, hearing 6 words and retrieving them a few minutes later. The ability to lay down something new, not how much you are carrying, how much you are still able to record. Which means the lever is not your age. The lever is how many first times you are still willing to have, not a new life, not a move abroad. The research is about landmarks, and landmarks are cheap. A road home you have never taken, a room you rearrange, a conversation with the person you have been meaning to call for 2 years. One deliberately unfamiliar thing this week, and that week will not fold into the one before it. Do it 50 times, and you have a year your memory has to file as a year. Here is the whole thing in one sentence. Time is not accelerating. Your recent years are simply being stored with fewer landmarks than your early ones, and you can still add landmarks. So tomorrow morning, when you drive that road, take the other one. Nothing is stealing your years. You are just no longer writing them down.